Okay, so what we do is we can add a new expense. So I can do category. I've got some already, but I'll just do travel again. Okay, so what you can see that it's added it to the table under the section header of travel. Okay, had I created a new type of category, then it would have created a new section header in there as well. Okay. So I can do usual things with this. I can delete that, and that will be deleted also from the core data as well as on here. So the fetch results controller is pretty much handling all this for me. I don't need to worry about refreshing the table if I delete or if I add things, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's our target build. This is what we're trying to make. Okay. So what we're going to do is going to hide that, stop that. That way. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start from a new XCode project. As I say, I promise you we'd do this right from scratch. Okay, so the project type I want to choose is master detail. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call it finance demo. Also, importantly, we're going to tick to use core data. Okay. Let's see what this gives us. Okay, right away, if we have a look what we've got, we get our usual application delegate. We've got a master view controller, and we've got a detail view controller. Okay, and we've also been given a model of something or other. Okay, we can see down here. Okay. So let's just have a look at the model. Okay, the default model being given to us is just something really simple. It's just called event, and it's just got one attribute, and the attribute happens to be a date type. It's just in a stamp. So it's just to get you going. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll run this just to see how it behaves. Okay. So you can see as the way it's behaving at the moment, if I press the add button at the top, it inserts a new, it inserts a date, as you can see in the table. What's going on underneath is it's inserting a new event object into the core data each time you press this. The other view that we've got is a detail view, and if we click on the row itself, then that goes to the detail view. And the detail view just repeats this information, which is just pulling the date part out of the event object and display it on there. So okay, so that's all we've got to go with so far. So let's have a look at the code. Okay, so we have our master view controller, and you can see it applies a protocol as well as a table view controller of an NSFetch results controller delegate. Well, we probably expected to see that because we know that's kind of subject of what we're talking about. It also has a property, this view, of an NSFetch results controller and a managed object context. Well, okay, that's good because that's the two things we know we need anyway. Okay, so let's just have a quick scan down the code, see if we can work out what this is doing. Okay, so we can have a look at this first bit of code, which is here, just in the view did load. It looks like it's adding a button. Yep, it is, that's fine. It's added the edit button onto the bar, and it's also added the add button as well. Okay, and the add button is calling a selector. You can see it's all done in code, this, so it's not been done in XCode, it's just been hard-coded. So it's targeting this selector, which inserts a new object. Well, that's what we'd expect anyway. And if we have a look what's going on here, let me just insert new object. You can see manage object context, self-fetch results with controller, and so on. And there's a piece of code there which eventually pulls out, creates an entity, creates a new managed object, which is just called new managed object in this particular instance. And then finally, a bit further down, you can see that it's for that managed object, it's setting a value. Okay, what it's doing to set the value, it's using a value for key. Okay, remember we said in the last lecture we don't really like doing this. We prefer properties, but they're both valid. Okay, so that's fine. So what it's doing, it's setting a value for key and setting a date type. And then there's some error handling. You can see it's going into a little save, and it's kind of trying to do the save, and if there's an error, it will generate an error. Okay, unlike the managed document, this is a kind of, you need to call this save as well, but don't worry about that. Okay. All right, what else is happening in this code? We also have a prepare for segue as well, which is asking if the segue identifier is equal to show detail, then it's going to get the index path, get the managed object which pertains to that index path, okay, and then it's going to set that onto the destination view controller by calling a method on it called set detail item. Okay, you can probably guess what's kind of going on here. We'll come back to the other bits in a minute. So what we'll do is we'll just have a look at what's going on the other side. Okay, the detail view controller is kind of quite abstract because it has this a type on it, a property on it of ID. And it does that because it doesn't really know what's going to be passed. It's just saying, you know, I know something's probably going to get passed, so I've got an ID type there. And some kind of label, you can see. So if we look at the detail, okay, it said, we know it called this method set detail item. Well, this is doing just some kind of instantiation on that, and then it's going to set this thing, configure the view. And so all it's doing really is taking the detail item, which we know is one of these event types, and you can see it's using the value for key of timestamp and setting that value equal to the text of a label. In other words, it's just putting the date that was relating to that particular event onto that label. Okay, so that's kind of okay what that's doing. Okay, so we'll try and have a look at some of the core data code now as well. See if we can have a sort of look at what that's doing. Okay, so we're going to look at some of these kind of pragma marks. So we'll look at the table view. Start with this one. So we've got number of sections in table view. It's quite interesting because we're not worried about how to do this because the fetch results controllers is going to do it for us, as you can see. All we do is we ask it for the count of its property or its method called sections. Okay, so obviously just an NS integer. We've got number of rows in the section. What we can see here. You can see slightly different bit of code. Uses this ID NS fetch results section. It's a protocol. Don't worry about it for the moment. We will make use of it a bit later on. Okay, but that's again, but essentially what we're using is the fetch results controller again to tell us the number of sections. That's great. That's set up. Okay. Cell for row index path. This was the bit when we did our table views last time is where we configured the cell, if you remember. And so we just configure the cell as the cell becomes loaded into our view or appears in our view. This method gets called and we'll load it. In this case, it's still doing exactly the same thing. It's just that it's doing that somewhere else. It's just doing it in this other method called configure cell, and so on. So this is just about, can we edit the row, and that's just returning yes, and so on, and a bit about the editing style. Okay, so configure cell, which is here, is all that's doing is it's doing cell.textLabel.text equals object, okay, value for key. So again, it's just using the NS managed object that's on that particular cell, and just putting the timestamp out again. So that's all that's doing. So it pulls the timestamp out of the NS managed object and sets that to be the text of the label on the particular cell. And so it's a kind of bare minimum configuration. And then there's some other stuff here, which is the configuration of the fetch request controller itself and the fetch request. So we can see we've got a fetch request here, which is Alex and initted. Okay, and it's got entity for name. This is important. We need to be able to spot this. Here it says NS entity description, entity for name, event. Okay, so we saw that. We saw there was an event, there was a model, and there was one entity in that model which was called event. Okay, so we probably want to change that, do something else with it. Okay. Then you can see there's a sort descriptor. At the moment, that sort descriptor is initializing with the key timestamp ascending no. So it's doing some kind of date, essentially some date order in there as well. Okay, there's no predicates. Okay, so we're not in this example. We've got no predicates, but we've just got that one sort we want to do. Okay, and then below that section we come to here, which is this fetch controller. Okay, so this is the thing, the key object that we're using. That's Alex, and it's initted with details of the fetch request, and also with the managed object context. Okay, and at the moment, the bit which says section name for key path is set to nil. Okay, you can see there that's set to nil because it's saying I've got no sections. Okay, it's just one big section. Okay, and it has a cache, and the cache name happens to be called master. Okay, for whatever reason. We can either leave that, we can make it nil. Depends on what you want to do. Okay, we set the delegate, which has to be done to say that the fetch controller's delegate is this particular class, because we saw that it implemented that protocol at the beginning. Okay, a bit of other stuff. We're done. This bit we can probably not worry about. It's just boilerplate code that makes it work, but it's been given to us. Okay, so it might be interesting to look and to be able to use, but we're not too concerned about it at the moment. Okay, so that's the default behavior, and that's the code that's given to you when you do the standard Xcode template. Okay, so what we're trying to do now is go work with it, because you want to do your coursework. We can either write this stuff from scratch, or we can try to run with the template and go, let's might as well use this. This is good. All the core data is done for us. It's what we want because it's a table view. It's got a fetch results controller, so it's got all the stuff we need. Okay, agreed? Okay, so that's what we're going to try and do then. So the first thing we'll do is replace the model. Okay, we don't want the date model. We want a model that looks something like an expense. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. To do that, we're not going to overwrite the existing model. It's just fiddly. So what we'll do is we'll just create a new model. Okay, so first thing we're going to do then is we'll do new file. Okay, core data. And we're going to do data model. Like so. We'll call it, I think the other one's probably called model, so we'll call this one, I'll call it finance. I'm going to call it finance model. Okay, So this gives us our the thing that we should be sort of familiar with for creating a new entity. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new entity. Just want to make sure I get exactly the same. Right, so we're going to add an entity, and I'm going to call it outgoing, okay, to represent some kind of cost. Okay. So the attributes I need is going to be amount, which I'm going to do as a float. Category, okay, which is going to be just a string. Okay, category would be like food, travel, insurance, mortgage, that kind of thing. So I'm going to have a description, which I'm going to call cost description, and we're going to make that a string as well. Also need a date, which is going to be date type. Okay. I've got to leave it there actually. Okay. Okay, everyone happy with that? It's a bare minimum. I might have other things on it, like are you recurring? For example, and I might have what's your recurrence period? So is it once a month? That I might have some other information on there. Okay, this is a simple model. I'm not going to bear any more relationships to anything, so we're just going to have this kind of single thing here. Okay. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do while we're here, I'll create the subclass for this model as well, because I'm going to use a subclass for it. So we'll do that there as well. So we're going to do new file. I'm going to do NS managed object subclass. Okay, remember I want that. Why do I want that? So I can access it with properties, yeah, rather than having to do value for key thing. Okay, so we're going to do that. Oh yeah, yeah, probably matters. And I want to make sure it's that one I want, yeah. Okay, I've only got one entity, so I'm just going to do that. Okay, and here they are, got this subclass of our entity. Okay, I'm not going to, we did talk about using categories if we wanted to kind of add methods to these things, but we're not going to do any of that today. You may choose to do it. Right, okay, so what I'm also going to do, just because I'm going to show you a protocol, a blind delegate method using the protocol to send data back, I'm going to create another object which is just going to be, it's going to look like this one, but it's going to be more, it's just going to be a plain object that I'm going to use as a holder. Okay, the reason is this, I've got to have a view where I want to send data related to this back, but I don't want to send an NS managed object back. Okay, because I just want to keep it simple for myself. Okay, I just want to contain something that's going to contain that data that will then get set to an NS managed object. Okay, so I'm just going to create another thing, which I'm just going to call it the outgoing holder. And what I'll do is I'll probably pinch these actually, because it's going to be pretty much identical, more or less anyway. So this is a plain NS object, and I want it to have pretty much exactly the same properties, but I can't use this retain, I'm going to use strong. Because this is not a managed object. Okay, so I've done that just to give myself an object which I can use to hold the same data as my managed object when I don't want to manage it, as it were. So it's just a useful little thing to have, as you'll see a bit later on, hopefully. Right then. So the other thing I want to do is I want to be able to add an expense now. The behaviour we've got at the moment is, it adds just a date. Okay, so we need to look at the code there. So we'll have a look in the master view controller. So I know there's a bit of code here which is adding a bar button. Okay, with the plus. I don't want that because I want to do my own version of it. It's got a method in there, or it uses a selector, insert new objects. I can probably reuse that though. Okay, I can probably reuse a lot of that. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'll comment out this code. I won't delete it. I'll comment this code out, and we're going to put our own button in, and we're going to create another view that we're going to do a segue to. Okay, so let's do that first. So I'll comment this. Okay, that's good. And if we run this, we should see that our plus button has now disappeared from the top. You can see it's gone. Okay, that's fine. That's what we expected. Probably we'll have to delete these rows in a bit as well. Okay, so what we want to do then is we want to go to our storyboard. Okay, these are a bit big for me to handle, so I'm just going to make them smaller just to make my life a bit easier than this. I'm not too worried about what we're doing with constraints here. So I'm just going to make them this size. Okay, and you can see what we have here is we have, this is embedded in a navigation controller which was given to us. We have our table view, and we have our other view which is actually a segue from the table row itself. Okay, someone selects the row. So we're going to keep that because the detail view is useful to us. So we'll hang on to that as well. But what I want to do is add a button. Okay, so I've got to make sure I get the right sort. Okay, so it's a bar button item, okay? And the type I want is add. You see that? Okay, so I've just added a bar button item, picked it from the list, and I've made sure it's an add type. Okay, it's good that. That's consistent user interface and so on. Okay, so if it's intended to add something to the table, make it look like an add. Okay. That's good. Okay, now I've got that. I do need that, sorry. What we're going to do is I'm going to, not a lot of room in VGA, but what I want to do is to add another view controller, which if you remember from the initial demo is where I'm going to put my sort of finance details in. So I'm going to drag one of these out and try and put it down there if it'll go. Yeah, okay. Just going to stick this down here. And then what I want to do is I want to replace that programmatic insert that we did. I just want to put segue in, plain segue. So I'm going to control drag from my button. So make sure you've got this selected. Okay, probably a good idea if you, yeah, it is selected, so that's good. And then control drag to the other view controller, and we'll have it as a show, which means it's just going to get into the navigation stack there. And also I'm going to pick the segue, which is here. Sorry, it's not very easy to see. You can probably see it just there now. Pick this segue, and I'm going to call that segue. Just make sure, stay consistent. We're going to call this segue add expense. Okay, so there's our plus thing. It's just going to go to this blank view controller at the moment. There's nothing on it, so that's fine. That's all working. Okay, it's not doing anything at the moment. So while we're doing that, what else do I need to do now? I've created a new view controller, so I need to create subclass. Okay, remember that. Don't forget that. It won't work. So I need to create a subclass for it, another view controller. Okay, so let's just get this back in, just hide this. So I'll go here, I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to call this add new expense. Okay, add new expense view controller. Make sure you pick up a view controller. Okay, add it to your project. And there it is. Okay, all ready to go. Okay, so while we're focusing on the new view controller, we may as well populate that in the storyboard as well, so that's ready for us. Okay, so we have our new view controller. Go back to our storyboard. Let's just get it so we can see it nicely. Okay. So if we go by what we had last time on our previous one, we're going to add a category, a text field for category, a text field for amount, and a text field for description. And we're going to try and put a date picker on it as well. We're trying to do align it nicely so it at least works in iPhone 6, for example. Okay, so we're just going to drag some stuff out here then. So we'll just drag out a label, which is going to be called category. Okay. Another one about there. Another one about there. Okay, then we're just going to have a text field so the user can put some data in. So that'll be the category name. This will be the amount. And this will be a description. So I'm just going to line these up a bit. Okay, just going to have a look at that. Okay, just going to do a bit more on the constraints. Set the widths. Okay, let's just got to move that. Just titles gone down. All right, I'm going to leave that because I don't want to spend ages pinning the bloody thing down. So we're just going to, so we can move on. I've got what I need. Okay. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm just going to, for the category, I'm fine with the standard keyboard type. For the amounts, I'll probably try and pick a different sort. I'll probably try and pick a decimal pad, just so they can enter numbers. And description, I'm okay with that as well.
So what did you change the category to?
A keyboard, different keyboard. Yeah, which is a floating point. Okay, so I'll show you again. Not a category, just the amount. Yeah. So it's this one. It's just use a decimal pad.
Okay. The rest is okay.
Yeah, just normal text. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now that's pretty much set up. Just need to sort out a bit of the layout. What we want to do is we may as well configure that fully. So what we're going to do is going to select this view controller. Okay, can we have no talking? Okay, we're going to select this view controller, which is not that one I want. This one. Okay, and we're just going to, because we're going to want to pick up the information from these text boxes. So we're just going to create properties of these. Okay, so I'm just going to select the view controller, go to its identity inspector, and select the class, which is this add new expense. Okay, save that, otherwise I can't add any properties. So control drag from here, so that's a text box, that's a text, and it's going to be category. Okay, we're going to control drag from amount. Okay, and this is going to be text box again, and it's amount. Okay. Same with the description. Okay, like so. Okay, and the other thing we're missing is we want to do a date picker as well. Okay, so we're just going to have to sort that one out. So just going to come back to here, just give ourselves a bit of room, clear this one. Okay, I might redo the constraints on this. Actually, it's not working very well, but just move these up. Give myself a bit of room. Okay, so the thing we need, if we go down our list here, is one of these, which is a date picker. Okay, the date picker will size itself to be probably roughly, it's about 1/4 of a view is a sort of typical size of a date picker. I'm going to put mine up because I know a keyboard's going to be at the bottom. It's going to pop up, so I'm going to try and put it somewhere up here. Okay. Like so. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is try and just constrain that inside there. I'm going to try and pin these all to the left and to the top. I'll see how we get on with that. Okay, before I do that, what we'll do is we'll add our date picker as well to our properties on this view controller. So I'm going to just control drag from the date picker, add this in here. Okay, still these things aren't right, but you get the idea. So what we've got is our category, our amount, and then we've got this kind of nice date picker here, which is not too bad. Okay, you can select what you want to do with this as well, because we're only going to do it by date. We're not really interested in the exact time of day in our particular case. So we're going to just quit that for a minute, hide it, and then pick our date picker, and then go to the attribute, and we can say what you want to, what mode would you like. We can do time, we can do date, we can do a countdown timer. We're probably just interested in date. Don't really need to know the time. You might do, you might want the resolution of a day. That's fine if you do. That may make sense in some cases. So okay, in there. I'm just going to fix the width of these. Okay, all right, that's not too horrible. Okay, that'll do for us. Okay, so where we are now is we've got our second view controller now configured. But what we want to be able to do, next bit we're going to do, is there's going to be some information on it, which is going to represent one of our expenses. Okay, what I've said I don't want to do is I don't really want to configure the NS managed object on that view. I just want to pass this data back and set it up in the main view. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at something new. We're going to look at the use of a protocol to do a blind communication back, because it's a standard object-oriented program. And if I have something that creates a new object, the newly created object has no way of kind of getting back or communicating with the object that created it. There's just no way of doing that. You need a mechanism of doing that. And so, delegates is a way of doing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set that up first. Okay, so we're going to go to our view controller. Which is here. Okay. And what we want to do in the header is we want to create a protocol which is just allows us to send this data back. So I'm going to call it expense data delegate. Okay, and this is the syntax we need to use. Okay, I'm just going to do an import of something while I'm at it. So we're going to want that as well, so I'm just going to import this. And so how do I create a protocol? Well, I use this syntax. Okay, that protocol. The name of the protocol, which is going to be expense data delegate. Okay, like so. We use this as usual. It's probably not necessary, but we do it anyway. Okay, and then what we do is we say, well, what's required? I'm going to put the end in as well, actually, in there. And then in our delegate, we say what are the required methods, and if you wish, you can say what are the kind of non-required methods or optional methods. Okay, but in our case, we just want one required method. Okay, the required method we want is going to be void type, and it's going to be pass data back. Okay, and it's going to take the argument of one of these holders, and I'm going to follow. Okay, so all it is it's just like if you'd written an interface in Java, it's that sort of thing. All it is, it's just a promise that if I implement this delegate, I promise to at least do a concrete version of this required method. Okay, I haven't said who the delegate is yet. It's just that's what it is at the moment. So the class I plan to make the delegate of this is the master view controller, because that's what I want to pass this data back to. So what this gives me a way, it effectively gives me a way of calling a method on the master view controller from the second view controller to do something to pass this data back. Okay. Right, and then there's a little bit of a setup we then have to do once we're inside here, okay, in the interface. So we need to set up a property. This will make sense hopefully in a bit. Okay, non-atomic weak in this case. Okay, all that's doing is creating a property which is one of these protocols, and it's called delegate. Okay, just think of it, at this point, think of it as a class almost. It's probably more helpful in a way. Think of it as a sort of a class with a method, with one method on it. Okay, don't get obsessed with the protocol part of it. That's all, think of it like that. In that case, you wouldn't be unhappy if I just said, oh, I've made a property of this class. That's okay, that's fine. Okay, we're just making a property of a protocol. Perfectly okay. All right. So, and it's an ID type because that's what they are, and because it's got no defined type, obviously at the moment, or as a defined type, so it's only a protocol. And then we're going to call this property delegate. Okay, so we've finished in the header here. Okay, this is a standard way of doing it. So if you're sort of not sure how to do it, there's some code on Blackboard, which is the bare bones example of doing this. So if you get stuck, just have a look at that. Okay, so we're all set up to do this. I'm going to go into the view controller, into the view did load. I'm just going to set up a title. Okay, so that's nice. So we have a title for our view controller as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass back that data. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this next bit now. Okay, so we've got cool. Yep. Right, so we're going to create a method. We could do what we where is it? We can when we're in a second view controller and we want to call a method when the view controller goes back. And remember what the method name is. Yeah, it's not segue. It's the view will disappear. When the view disappears, it's where you would usually do these things. Okay, what you avoid in kind of iOS design generally is buttons. You don't want to kind of, I've saved my expenses, I have to push a button to kind of now register I've saved it. Well, no, just use it when the view, you set the thing up, when the view goes back, that's when you save it. Okay, generally what you'd do. Okay, so we're going to add that method in, because it won't be here. Okay. Okay, so we've got this view will disappear. So just to keep it nice and separated, we'll implement a method which is just going to call passback data or something like that. So we got void passback data, something. Okay, and in here, what we want to do is we want to create one of these new outgoing things, just because I just want one of these objects. Okay, just want one of them. That's good. I'll say all I'm using it as a way of passing an object to pass my data back. And the h.category. Okay, I just want to make equal to self.text category dot text. Okay, that's a simple one. Then I've got description, cost description equals self.text description. Okay, that's that one. The other thing I want to set is date as well. Okay, so I'm going to pass that along. Equals self.date picker dot date. Okay, so that's how you do that. That's the kind of new thing. So that's how we text there. That's how we access the date on a date picker. It has its own property, just called date. Now, we've not talked about date formatting, and there is an object called an NS date formatter, which for your coursework you would have to format dates nicely. This will just give you the full date in seconds and everything. So that's what you want to look at for that. Okay, And the only things missing is the amount, just the actual cost as well. So let's get that done as well. Okay, so we have h.amount, I think it was it? Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Just going to make a small modification. Okay, so what we've done then is in this passback data, all we've done is configure the information on the view controller that the user's put in, and we've put it inside an object just to hold it, and then finally we want to then somehow pass this back. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put the code in here. So I've got self.delegate, okay, which is the delegate we created, if you remember, and then I want to call the method on that, which was something like passback data, okay, and it's got this outgoing holder which we've called h, okay, and I've done that. Now as it stands, this will do absolutely nothing, okay, we'll just, because I have not said there's a delegate, there's a protocol on here, but we've not assigned it to any other class. Okay, so that's what we've got to do now. So if we go to the master view controller, okay, we'll go to the header. Okay, the first thing we need to do, okay, is we must implement this delegate, this other method, okay, this other protocol. So we've already got the fact it will do NSFetched controller delegate, and we're going to add another one. Now for me to do this, I'm going to have to obviously import it. So I wrote it inside the add expense view controller header. So the protocol's there, so I need to import it obviously. Now with these protocols, you can just write them in any other header. You don't have to write them in a header of a view controller or anything, just be another file. Okay, so I've imported it there. Okay, so now I want to make sure that I'm implementing it. So to implement the syntax for doing this is you just put a comma, then start writing your other delegate. And you can see Xcode has found it, this expense data delegate, and so on. Now if I build this, I should get a warning. Any idea why I get a warning? Yeah, I haven't implemented it yet. So I said that if I'm going to implement this protocol, then I have to implement also all the required methods on the protocol as well. So it should, this warning should be something about yeah, method passback data in protocol expense data delegate is not implemented. Okay, that's right, it isn't. Okay, so we can have a look at that. Okay, so we'll do it. We're just going to stub it out, not put the detail in it yet, just so we get rid of that warning. Okay, and we can do it. We'll do it after this view did load. Just ends here. Okay, and it's called passback data. So I'll make this method. It was a void method, if you remember. So if I start doing it, there you go. Passback data, outgoing holder, expense. Okay. It's not doing anything at the moment, but probably what I want it to do is to insert a new object. It's exactly what I want to do. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly rewrite the self insert new object. Okay, and add a signature of being able to pass this expense object just along to it, so it can then go and update. Okay, and then we can sort of test it just to see if it works. Then, if the protocol works, and this is something else we need to do. So our insert new object is just below it actually. Insert new object at the moment has got the ID of a sender, which was actually the plus button, if you remember. That was where it was originally coming from. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to change this. Just going to, instead of saying that, I'm going to call it one of these outgoing holders. I'll just make sure I've got a reference to it. Can't remember if I did or not. Okay, so I've got one of them. So I should be able to do this. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to rewrite my the one we got given to us, which was this insert new object. Because I just want to pass it this thing that we've got back from this other view controller, hopefully. Okay, this should just build. It shouldn't really have a problem with that. I've not done anything dramatic. There you go, that's fine. Okay, so that's just preparing for us to sort of how we're going to take this forward. We're going to change the code. Obviously going to rewrite quite a bit of code there. And we're going to get it to finally insert this object down there. Okay, so far so good. Now, I'll tell you now, if I run this code, it still won't work. Okay, any ideas why it won't work yet? It's something about the second view controller. Remember, it's got this .delegate method, .delegate property. Okay, I have to tell it, well, who is it? Who is your delegate? Okay, so you may have seen that before, where you've got a kind of self.delegate equals self or things like that. We have to set this up. Now, to do this, okay, we have to look at the segue, because that's the point when that's the only opportunity actually we get to do this. So we're going to look at the prepare for segue now, because we've got this new segue. We've got our show detail, which is great. We like that. We're going to keep that. But we've got another segue, if you remember, which is going off to adding this new expense. Okay. So let's do something there. So if I've got if, I'm just going to pinch this actually, be quicker. So I'm going to, just going to nick that top line at least. Okay, on there. So I've got if segue identifier is equal to, I think ours was called add expense. We need to check that because it won't work. Okay, do something in there. Okay. So we've got two segues at the moment. One when you press the row, and one when you press this plus button in here. Okay. So let's have a look at this one. The only thing I need to do here is, because it will work anyway, because it's an Xcode segue, so it will arrive there. But before it does that, I do need to prepare it. And the thing I need to say is to say, look, I want to set myself as the delegate. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So to do this, okay, I want to do. The easiest way to do this is to add a property. Okay, which is non-atomic strong. Okay, and the property I want is the other view controller, which I think I might have imported in the header. Can't remember. Let me just double check. Yeah, add expense, one of these. Okay. Okay, so my master detail has now got a property which is this other view controller. The only purpose of doing this is so I can set the delegate on it. That's the only reason. I could now. I do have the opportunity to do other things. I could do other things with other properties, but I'm not. I don't want to need to do that. I'm just doing it purely to set up the delegate. Okay, and it's called add express VC. So if I go back to my segues now, which are down here in my prepare for segue method. Okay, and I do self dot add. There it is. So the property I've got equals segue dot destination view controller is my first line. Okay. So what that does, it sets up, it basically means that the property on this class now points to the live object that's been set up. Does that make sense? Okay, that's good. That's what we wanted. So I've now got a handle to it. And then all I then need to do is to say, well, self dot add expense VC has this delegate on it, which this delegate property, which we know is the protocol, yeah. And I want to make that equal to self. Yeah, does that make sense? Probably not. Okay, they take a while to get used to. It's just a pattern. If you follow the pattern, you can't go wrong. Okay, but that if you think about it, that's all that's doing is it's just saying that we basically create a pointer to the second view controller which we've got, which is adds this expense. We know that that's got a property on it which is called delegate. It's actually a class protocol, and we want to access a method on it. Okay, and it's just saying that just equals self because I'm the thing that implements it. Okay. So what should happen now is, and we should be able to test this now, we've implemented this passback data, but on the passback data, what we want it to actually implement is to insert the new object. So we're going to now reuse this one, which is insert new object, and we're going to pass it the argument of expense. Okay. So it's not going to work yet because we haven't configured that insert, but we should be able at least to see that we're getting our data back here, so we can put a breakpoint on this. Okay. So if we run this, okay, we've now got our new view controller on here. Okay, which seems okay. We're going to test it out. So I'm going to say food amount should bring up. I don't know why it does complain this. Not sure. I'll have to check that error. But because I selected the decimal keypad, which is quite nice because it means I can do this. Not food. I think we'll have food. No, £45. That's my nice lunch. Okay, right now I think I did. I hope I implemented this. When we do probably didn't. We'll find out. Okay, not working. Possibly because I haven't implemented it yet. Sweat set. Okay, so the bit I haven't done, I said you've got to do this in the view will disappear. So in the view will disappear, I have to call this passback method. Okay, so that's just self passback data. Okay, so that completes it. So the way this goes is it will go from we have some data. Okay, we call a method on ourselves to the self.delegate method, which is here. Okay, that we just call in the view will disappear, and that we'll call via the protocol the thing that implements it, which is this master view controller. Okay, so you can see now it's done a blind communication to whatever's going to implement that delegate, and now it's landed there. Okay, we don't want to let it run because it won't know what to do with that thing at the moment. Okay, so that seems to be all working. We could have a look at the expense object. down here, and if you can just about see that, you can see that's all working very nicely. It's sending all the data back. And so we want to configure a managed object now after that. Okay. Don't quit. Let's do it that way. Okay, let's get rid of that. Right, okay, so the position we're in now is we want to now sort out our managed object. At the moment, we're still using that old model, which was given to us by the Xcode template, which is that event thing. We don't want to use that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through the controller, okay, and start sorting these things out. Okay. So where we'll start with is we'll start with that insert new object method that we had, which is just right here. Okay, gives ourselves a bit of room. Okay, and at the moment we have a most of it we can use up to NS managed object, entity description. Okay, I'm going to change this bit, okay, and I'm going to make sure I've got one of my managed objects first of all. Okay, if you remember, outgoing is actually my managed subclass. Okay, remember we created the entity and then we did the managed subclass on it. So I want one of them. So I can set up the properties and don't have to do this value for key. Okay, so the only thing I'm going to change at the moment is where we're doing the insert new object for entity name. Okay, because I don't want a generic managed object now because I've got one. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to change that to be outgoing. So instead of NS managed object, I want my NS managed object of outgoing. Like so. I don't like the name new managed object, so I'm just going to call mine, I'll call it outgoing again. Something like that. Okay, so this might start complaining now because it's obviously trying to set a value for a key of something that doesn't exist anymore. I don't really want to do this anyway, so we're just going to comment that out. Okay. So again, we're fine. Can build this. This will build. Okay, but what I want to do now is start to populating my managed object with the data that I've just got. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our outgoing dot cost description equals, well, we passed in that expense holder, remember, we were using this object to pass this data around. It should be called expense, and it should look pretty much the same. Okay, so these should almost be like for like so. Outgoing dot amount equals expense dot amount. Some weird float, no doubt, number thing going on there. Yeah, okay, I do need to do a little bit of work on this because it's an NS number. So what I want to do is NS number with float, and then I want to pass in my argument of expense dot amount. Okay, okay, because obviously when you set up a managed object, when you choose float, the type is actually NS number. Okay, you just got to live with that. Okay, because it's got to be an object of some sort. So they're easy. They're really easy to do. If you've got an NS number and you need to create an NS number from a float or an int or anything, the method you use NS number with float, number with int, number with double. It's really a simple thing to do. So we're done there with that one. And the other thing I want to do is the date. Okay, this should be straightforward. Okay. Alright, that's good. Right, so everyone following that so far, what we've done? Okay, so we passed the data back, we used a holder, doesn't matter. We just used an object, convenient object for us. When it's come back, we've inserted it, we've done our fetch controller, got a new outgoing object, and then we've put the details in that object. And if you look at the line below, you can see it goes into this if, which is actually trying to do the save. And it's just if there's an error, it will call an error. Hopefully nothing will go wrong here. Okay, so we're nearly getting there now. Okay, other things to do then. Okay. Well, when we looked down our code a bit further on, okay, we just want to make sure. You see, this is going to be a problem for us because you can see the entities for names no longer right. Basically it was the default template that we got, and we created a new model, if you remember. So we need to make some changes there. Okay, might be some other ones as well, but let's do that one first. So I don't want the entity for name to be event. My entity name was outgoing. Okay, so I want to use that instead. That's one thing fixed. Okay, the sort descriptor, init with key. I don't have anything called timestamp either. Okay, I do have something called date though, so if I could sort it by date, so I think I'll use my date there instead. It's luckily this is exactly the same. Timestamp was also a date, but I have something in my key called date, so I'll do that as well. Category. Cache name's okay, probably, maybe not, maybe I should change that. Anything else that's wrong with this? Yes, section. Okay, at the moment, this is doing section name, section key path is nil. I'll leave that for now. Okay, I'm not going to worry about section headers just yet. Cache name master, I think that will probably still work actually, because I'm just going to delete everything anyway that's currently on there. Okay, just going to do a final check elsewhere. I don't think the detail view controller will work properly yet because it's still probably referring to a timestamp on there. So we could have a quick look at that as well. Which is this detail view controller. You can see the value for key from what's being passed over says timestamp. I know I haven't got a timestamp. I have something else called date. Okay, you might do value for key might be category. So you might have food or a description or something like that. I'm going to stick to date though. So that's the other thing I probably want to change. Okay, back to the master view controller. Not sure there's anything else. The rest should work okay, I think. Right, so if we run this, it just doesn't work. Okay. Okay, saying a fetch request must have an entity. Okay, so I think I know what this is. So I'm just gonna.
You have that one.
Okay, the issue is from the original template that we set up. If we look at what we had in terms of our model, the model we were given is, I think it was called finance demo.model. It basically just took the name of the project and then created a model. If you look in the application delegate, because of the way this is being set up, it uses the name of that. Just find it for you. There you go, it's here. if you remember, we talked about the UI document does a lot of this thing for you. In this example, it doesn't, so it's all quite verbosely done for you. If you look in the application delegate, you just got to make sure that whatever model you are using in this line here, which is the model URL, this is the actual URL of it, it's actually the points to the file, it's got to be the same name as your model. And I changed mine to be finance model because I didn't want to reuse the other one. So you've got to update this as well. Okay, so that's why it was a problem. What you might find also is if you do that, if you've been running the application in the first instance, it will complain that you're trying to create a new database on one that already exists in the same application. You might get this kind of vacuum level type error in there. Just delete the application off the simulator. You know how to do that, like press the home key, hold the thing down so you get the cross, delete it, and then just run it again. So if you change the underlying database, you must delete it off the simulator or device. Okay, so what we've got now then, if we go back to our view controller, is the only other thing I've done is I've set the cell up as well, which is this configure cell. So if you have a look at this line, okay, can we just keep the noise down, please? We've got this configure cell, seller index path. This is a kind of crucial thing because this is, if you're going to use the standard template, this is where you do all the work, okay, on your cell. At the moment, I've got I've created a local NS managed object called outgoing by using this self-fetch view controller object at index path. You get this anyway. This is what will come with the template code. And then all I'm doing is just setting up the cost description on the cell label. So not doing anything terribly exciting at the moment, but okay, so we can try and run this now. Okay, so you can see that's now working, and we've actually got an object inserted into the database as well. It's a bit boring, it's only saying lunch at the moment. We've got about 10 minutes, so what I might just show you is the section headers. So it's a really useful thing to be able to do. Okay, for me to put some more detail on this, it's really easy. I can show you if you like, just so lunch is kind of the title, but what I'll also do is put the description down as well. So we have let's hide that. Okay, so I'm in this configure cell. So if I want to add the, sorry, just quit the chat, we're nearly finished. So I'll do cell dot detail text label dot text equals my outgoing dot cost description. Okay, this probably won't work because I need to set up on the storyboard, I need to set the cell up itself. It's probably just set up as a basic type. So if we have a quick look at the storyboard, then we can set our prototype cell up to do various things. You can see the style's basic, so what I'll do is I can just have a kind of subtitle type, do this, I'll try that again. Okay, so using the same thing for some reason, but I've just got, at least you can now see the subtitles set up. Or I could do kind of left detail, right detail, that kind of thing as well. Depends on what you want to do. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, I don't want the cost description twice. I want the amount. Okay, would be useful to have. And I'll have the cost description. So I'm going to change the sub-detail just to be the amount. Okay, we know that's an NS number, so I've got to do a bit of work on that yet. Okay, so I want to do a string with format. And I want it to be center. Okay, bit of a long line, but you get the idea. So what I'm doing there is a string with format. This C-type formatting, .2f just gives me 2 decimal places. And then I have to pass it a float value. Outgoing .amount is an NS number, so we ask for the float value. Okay. So we can just check that's working okay. Yeah, so I've now got lunch at £45.56. Okay, do you want to see the section headers just to finish? Okay, might as well. So what we can do now is I'll create another thing so we have some section headers. This is under food, I think. So see if we can get this working quickly. So let's just add, let's say travel, good one. Say £67, and that was train to Oxford. Okay, you can see the way it's just doing date. It's a date sort, if you remember. So it's just putting the thing at the top. Okay, so what I'm not showing at the moment is the categories, because I'd kind of want be nice if we could do them maybe by a section header. So we're going to see how we can use the fetch results controller to do that for us. Okay. So just going to hide this. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at where this was configured. I've got a sort by date. That's the only sort I've got. And it says here, section name key path nil. Okay, what I'd like to do is to try to say, no, actually, I don't want nil. What I want you to do is I want you to use the key of category. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, there's something else I probably need to do, so but we can try it, see what happens. Okay, it's not going to do anything yet because I need to set up the names itself. Okay, so it now knows it's using that. Right. So if you've had a look at how to do this, what you need to feed into the one of the the delegate methods is to say what are the headings for the sections as well. But the fetch controller is going to do that for us, but we still have to stub out the method for it. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look up here. I'm just going to create a bit of room. Don't need any of these at the moment. Okay. So you can see here I've got numbers of rows in sections, and I've got number of sections in the table row. So it knows the number of sections. It knows the number of rows in a section, but the thing I've not doesn't know the titles of the section as well, which will vary because they're pulled out from this key. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to tell it the titles, and the method for that is one that already exists, obviously, on the table view. So it's the NS string table view. You have to be very careful with these because there's quite a lot of them, so you've got to do this quite slowly. The one I want is that one, which is title for header in section. Yeah? Okay, so now I've got it, I can do this. It returns a string, as you can see, so I'm going to have to do something here. Okay, I'm just going to have to type this in. There's no way of you knowing this. You just got to learn it. It's just the way you do it. Okay, it's similar to the other one. So I have an ID type of the NS fetch results protocol, and the particular protocol I want is the fetched results section info. Okay, so I'll close this off in there. I'll call it section info. Okay, it's quite similar to what we did when we set up the protocol, and that is equal to the fetch result controller sections. Bit of look. That's that. So that gives me the sections, and then I want the object at the index where the cell currently is, which is object. Okay, quite a long line. You just have to kind of go away and study that, sort of try and work out how that works. Okay. Okay. It's not working. Not working yet. Okay, we've run out of time, so I'll fix that for the little recording I'm doing and show that's probably something simple, no doubt. Okay. Okay, in the master view controller we've now set the managed objects category type to be equal to the category type that we passed in from the other view controller. So we're just going to add a new expense with the category of food. Okay, and you can see that it's now created the category heading for this particular cost. I'll do another one. Another one. And you can see the headings are now working fine. Okay, and that's the end of this demonstration.